Hey, it's Allie and Pat with Seattle Coffee Gear, and today we're doing another virtual roast of the month featuring Kickapoo's Spring Blend. This
Yeah.
is a coffee, if I can.
Yeah, I have a bag also that I can hold up to my
Wait,
slightly higher quality
camera.
video. Uh
But this is actually a blend that they offer each year, and it changes a little bit. So I think I remember 2 years ago I was really really into it. It was really floral. But
Yep, I
this
remember that one.
one, the notes are a lot different. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, so on the bag they note layered and confectionery notes. And on their website they expand on that a little bit and provide notes of milk chocolate, nougat, and dark cherry, which are like pretty I always don't like I don't like to use words like standard and normal.
I totally know what
Classic
you mean, though.
classic is maybe the better word to
Yeah,
use.
like a classic coffee taste.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah. But with a little bit more sweetness and a little bit less like dark chocolate than you would
Right.
get out of like your stock standard kind of
I
diner
really
medium.
I really do get the cherry note in this, though. I don't
hmm
know because I brewed mine Chemex, and you said you brewed yours drip,
Yeah, so I
right?
used a Bonavita and just brewed it middle of the road in terms of like a drip grind level,
Mhm.
and I'm getting less of the cherry note, but it's still present, and that chocolate is just really really pronounced in a
Yeah,
drip brew.
this to me, like mine came out like chocolate, almost like a cherry flavored chocolate. You know how sometimes they
Sure.
put like little fruit or something.
Yep.
That's to me, that's what this tastes like. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and so this year, this blend has origins of Colombia and Peru. Um,
Yeah, interesting.
so there are two new partnerships for Kickapoo, which is one of the interesting things about these seasonal blends is that they can change from year to year. And if you're not really, sometimes we talk about blends and single origins in like just assuming everyone knows what that means, but what it means is a single origin is a roast that is all beans from a specific crop from a specific producer.
Exactly.
So it's one producer, and their beans go through processing and then they go right to the roaster, and those are the only beans they use in the roast. So you're getting like the flavors of just those beans, and it's really
Right.
really drawing out the specific flavors of that harvest, and that crop, versus blends where in this case, for example, we've got a crop from Inza Valley in Colombia and from the Padilla family in Progreso, Peru, which are both, you can find single origins of both of those producers. And you like I know I've had both of those producers before in singles, and then this is sort of a blend that tries to, when roasters do blends, they're trying to find coffees that go well together and kind of create um, new tastes and maybe cancel out certain notes from each other, just to create different flavor profiles than what you would get from the single
Right.
origins. Yeah.
Yeah, and it usually can create some more complex flavors as well. You know what I mean? Like when they're usually they're either like roasted separately and then incorporated or roasted together, and that makes a big difference too
Mm-hmm.
about how they're presented. Because sometimes if that coffee is presented in a blend rather than a single origin, the roast profile of that is going to be a little bit different depending
Yeah.
upon what they're trying to pull out.
And what's interesting is that you can get that certain blends can be more complex and have more depth than the single origins on their own. And sometimes, though, you also get cases where it kind of makes the coffee a little bit. Again, it's hard to use words that don't make it sound like it's. I don't mean worse, but it kind of flattens some of the more um, prevalent notes. So if you blend, for example, a coffee that has really strong, like a natural that has really strong cherry notes with a more moderate washed coffee, then you'll kind of get a more subdued flavor profile that isn't worse. It's just fit for different palates and for different brew methods. Like it might even be
Oh,
easier to work with as an espresso or in a pour over than a single origin that has like really extreme notes of a specific kind of flavor.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I totally see what you mean there. And then like this coffee in particular, I think since it's pretty like I would call it heavier bodied, like it coats your mouth
Hmm.
pretty heavily. I think it would be a pretty good espresso, definitely good with milk. And I wouldn't always say that about like single origin coffees. Like I
Exactly.
don't know if
Yeah.
I would recommend that sort of thing.
Yeah. So like I had an Ethiopian this morning as well as a pour over, um, and it's a much more it's a very floral bright roast that
Yeah.
is great as a pour over. It doesn't really, in my opinion, work very well as other brew methods, or
Yeah.
it wouldn't. And if you were to brew it as an espresso, it would only really be something you would want to drink as a straight espresso shot. It wouldn't
Right.
necessarily be the kind of coffee that you would want to mix with milk. And blends are often really good for that. This one in particular, I can tell you that I am going to be trying it in a super auto because I think it would be really good in a super auto.
I
Um,
think so too.
Sometimes super autos have a tendency to flatten out those higher those like more extreme notes, and so
Yeah.
oftentimes single origins are a little harder to dial in to be as good as you would get them in other brew methods in a super auto. This is the kind of blend though that I think would really shine in that in that brew method.
I agree as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
That
so
dark coffee.
yeah, and but it's also, and like you said, it's full body, but it's not necessarily like dark. Um,
Yeah.
it's fairly light despite being kind of a um, heavier profile in terms of like oils and stuff.
Mhm.
But it's still got a light flavor. It's not, there's not really any roastiness. It's all that
Sweet.
kind of, confectionery is a good way to put it. It's all very like a cookie or something
Yeah.
like that, you know?
Very cookie. Dark chocolate cookie is like dark chocolate chunk cookie is very accurate actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I like it quite a bit, and yeah, part of the reason we wanted to highlight it for roast of the month is because we've had this blend and it's always pretty good, and it's
Yeah.
just an interesting study. This is the kind of thing that if you're like kind of a coffee nerd like we are, it's fun to see because you get to see how the blend develops over from year to year, and it's always a different. It's like a different piece of art every time.
Mhm.
It's like performing the same song but different with different instruments or something.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting.
It is. Yeah. It's really cool to see what they've done this year. And I'm really glad like 2 years ago it was like super good. And I'm glad that this one's to me is just as good on that.
I
I forgot what last one's was
Yeah,
like.
I don't recall the last one being quite as memorable, but I
Yeah.
remember it was not bad. That's for sure. They're never really, this particular blend is, I've always liked it, but this year definitely is more in line with 2 years ago. I think when it was very different, but one of the highlights of that season. I think for sure.
So, yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, unless you have any other thoughts,
Yeah.
if you have any questions about single origins versus blends or this particular blend or the producers, definitely let us know in the comments below. They also have a good write up about it on Kickapoo's website.
Yeah.
And make sure to like and subscribe to this video and catch some more at home content.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Yep. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.